that a problem? I can't. Okay, anyway, whatever. Let's just drop this topic.
Among professional sports, American football, particularly the NFL, tends to have the highest number of athletes involved in criminal activities. Studies and statistics consistently show that a significant percentage of NFL players have faced legal trouble, including violent crimes such as assault, domestic violence, and even homicide. Since 2000, there have been a total of 658 arrests involving NFL players. The Minnesota Vikings hold the highest number of arrests, with 57 players arrested over a 24-year span, while the Baltimore Ravens have the fewest, with 30 arrests during the same period. Some notable NFL arrests include players like Eric Naposki, who was playing for the New England Patriots and killed his girlfriend's husband so that she could receive her husband's life insurance policy in 1999. He is currently serving life in prison. Darrell Russell, who played for the Oakland Raiders, in 2002, along with two of his friends, videotaped themselves as they raped and attacked a woman. Russell was arrested, but the prosecutors dropped the charges before the case made it to trial. He would eventually return to the NFL in 2005 and play for the Washington Redskins until he was eventually banned for frequent substance abuse problems, and weeks later he would die in a car crash colliding with a bus. Keith Wright, who was a player for the Houston Texans, was sentenced to 234 years in 2012 for multiple home invasions and kidnappings. Also, Henry Ruggs, who played for the Oakland Raiders, was drinking one night and driving 156 miles per hour with his blood alcohol level at 0.161%, well over the legal limit of 0.08%. He collided with a 23-year-old woman, instantly killing her and her dog. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison in 2023. He is currently working in prison for $2.50 an hour compared to his $11 million salary before the crash. In the United States, there are over 6 million car accidents each year. In 2022, there were 5,930,496 motor vehicle accidents reported to the police, which included 42,514 deaths. In 2022, 13,524 deaths occurred in motor vehicle accidents in which at least one driver was impaired by alcohol. This means intoxicated drivers were involved in at least 32% of all traffic fatalities that year. But these 3 NFL players would all be involved with drunk driving and causing the death of others, and only be receiving a slap on the wrist, starting with Dante Stallworth, who was a wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. On the night of April 1, 2008, Dante had just left a bar in Miami Beach's Fontainebleau Hotel when he was speeding in his 2005 luxury Bentley GT, driving 50 miles per hour in a 40 miles per hour zone. He struck and killed a 59-year-old construction worker who had just completed his shift and was attempting to catch a bus on his way home. Before he hit him, Dante attempted to flash his lights and warn the construction worker, but that did not help. The victim instantly died. Dante stopped his car and immediately called the police. Dante was arrested and charged with manslaughter while under the influence of alcohol. The day before the incident, Dante had just received a $4.5 million roster bonus, and the year before, he had recently signed a $35 million contract. Dante remained on the Cleveland Browns roster, but was suspended from playing in any games. He faced up to 15 years in prison, but because of his cooperation and no criminal history, he received a 24-day jail sentence, 2 years of house arrest, along with 8 years of probation, and his driver's license suspended for the rest of his life. He was also required to participate in 1,000 hours of community service and ordered to donate $225,000 to the Mothers Against Drunk Driving Foundation that fights against drunk driving and helps provide money to deceased victims' families affected by drunk driving. But the foundation declined his money because they did not agree with his jail sentence. He would avoid a lawsuit and come to a financial settlement with the victim's family, but the amount he paid the family is unknown. Dante was allowed to play in the NFL again until he left in August of 2013 with the Washington Redskins. In 1998, after celebrating his birthday at a bar in St. Louis, Leonard Little was a defensive lineman for the St. Louis Rams. Driving around 11 p.m. intoxicated with an alcohol level twice the legal limit at 0.19 would be speeding in his Lincoln Navigator at 70 miles per hour in a 40 miles per hour zone when he ran a red light and crashed into a 47-year-old woman who was on her way to pick up her 15-year-old son from a concert. She would be pronounced dead 12 hours later. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 90 days in jail and 4 years probation, and after he was sentenced, the victim's husband, who she had been married to for 31 years, screamed out in the courtroom and begged the judge for a harsher sentence. The NFL would suspend Little for 8 games until he was allowed to play and would eventually sign a $17.5 million contract with the Rams. In 2003, after serving his probation, his criminal record was wiped clean, and later that year, in October, his little brother was shot to death in a dispute over $500 in North Carolina. Little felt that it was karma for his fault in the car crash death because October was the same month he had killed the woman. This forced Little to begin drinking again, and in 2004, he was arrested again for driving while intoxicated after being stopped by police for driving 78 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. At the time, he had bloodshot eyes, smelled of alcohol, and failed 3 roadside sobriety tests. Little received 2 years of probation on May 6, 2005, and was prohibited from drinking any sort of alcohol during his time of probation. He would eventually play 5 more years until he would retire in 2010. Another tragic story is when Dallas Cowboys defensive lineman Josh Brent in 2012 was out at a nightclub with his teammate Jerry Brown when they both decided to leave, and Josh's alcohol level was above twice the legal limit at 0.18 for his height being 6 feet 2 and his weight being 320 pounds, meaning he had to have at least drunk 17 alcoholic drinks to reach that blood level. Neither Josh nor Jerry were wearing their seatbelts in the Mercedes-Benz sedan. Josh was speeding at 110 miles per hour in a 40 miles per hour zone when he hit a curb and crashed on the highway. The impact threw Jerry's body on Josh, preventing him from serious injury, while Jerry's body took a lot of damage. The car immediately erupted in flames, and Josh was able to get out while he stood in the street, staring at the car while Jerry was still lying in the car, burning up. A random lady driving past stopped her car and got out to help, and she yelled at Josh to pull Jerry out of the car as he just stood there watching his friend burn up. Josh would eventually pull Jerry out of the passenger seat and lay him in the middle of the street, leaving him there while Josh would walk away, still in shock. Jerry would hours later be pronounced dead, and Josh would be charged with involuntary manslaughter and face 10 years in prison. While awaiting trial, Josh would retire from the NFL, and it was later revealed before his sentencing that while Josh was in college at the University of Illinois, his driver's license was suspended. Hand had multiple speeding tickets, and he had to serve 2 years probation and 60 days in jail while in college. In 2014, Josh would eventually be sentenced to 180 days in jail, with 45 of those days to be served in rehab. He would also have to serve 10 years of probation. Jerry's mother would forgive Josh for his causing the death of her son, but she would eventually file a lawsuit against the nightclub owner and Josh, and would finally settle for $25 million. 23 months later, Josh would return to the Dallas Cowboys and play football until he would officially retire in 2015. A couple years later, in 2019, Josh would be charged with public intoxication, assaulting an officer, and resisting arrest after police officers tased him after Wendy's employees called police, saying there was a man sitting in the parking lot intoxicated and drunk with his shirt off, talking to himself. As of today, well over 19,000 people in the United States are currently in prison, serving time for manslaughter involving the deaths of others while driving under the influence of alcohol or any other drug or illegal substance.
I can't. Okay, anyway, whatever. Let's just drop this topic.